The cold autumn wind rattled the shutters of the farmhouse, pulling Thomas Ashford from sleep with his hand, already reaching for the knife beneath his pillow. But when his eyes adjusted to the darkness, he froze at the sight that greeted him. A towering orc woman with green skin and small tusks stood perfectly still beside his daughter's bed, watching over little Clara with an expression so protective and tender that his grip on the weapon loosened entirely. Thomas didn't move. His heart hammered against his ribs, but something kept him from lunging forward or shouting. The orc woman hadn't noticed him wake. Her attention remained fixed on Clara, who slept peacefully beneath her worn quilt, clutching the cloth rabbit Thomas had sewn for her last winter. The moonlight streaming through the window illuminated the orc's features: sharp cheekbones, pointed ears that twitched slightly, and eyes that held a depth of sadness Thomas recognized all too well. She wore traveling leathers, torn and stained with old blood, and her muscular arms bore fresh scratches that looked like she'd fought her way through brambles. Or worse. He sat up slowly and the orc's head snapped toward him. Her hand went to the crude blade at her belt, but she didn't draw it. They stared at each other across the small bedroom, and Thomas became aware of how strange this moment was. An orc in his home, standing guard over his daughter instead of threatening her. Every story he'd ever heard about orcs involved raiding parties, burned villages, and bodies left in their wake. Yet this woman looked more frightened than dangerous. "Don't wake her," the orc whispered, her voice rough but careful. "Please, I mean no harm." Thomas glanced at Clara, still asleep, unaware of the tension crackling in the air. He looked back at the orc woman, noting the way she'd positioned herself between the window and Clara's bed, as if protecting her from something outside. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. "What are you doing in my house?" The orc woman's jaw tightened. "My name is Kara Venris. I was tracking something through these woods, something dangerous. It led me here and I saw it circling your farmhouse, trying to find a way inside." She paused, her eyes flicking to Clara again. "A GHRAL demon. They hunt children specifically. I killed it before it could reach your door, but the fight drew me close enough to see through your window. Your daughter sleeps alone in a room with a broken latch." Her tone carried no accusation, just a statement of fact that made Thomas's stomach clench with guilt. He'd been meaning to fix that latch for weeks. Work on the farm always seemed to push those small repairs to tomorrow, then the day after, then the day after that. "You killed a demon to protect us." "I killed a demon because that's what I do," Kara said. "But yes, to protect you." She shifted her weight, and Thomas noticed she favored her right leg. Blood had soaked through the leather on her left thigh. "I stayed to make sure no others came. GHRAL sometimes hunt in pairs." Thomas rose from his bed, moving slowly to avoid startling her. He'd lost his wife Margaret to fever 3 years ago, and since then, it had been just him and Clara trying to survive on this isolated homestead at the edge of the thornwood. He'd chosen this location specifically for its distance from other people, from their judgment and pity. But that isolation also meant danger, and he knew it. "You're hurt," he said, gesturing to her leg. Kara glanced down as if surprised to remember the wound. "It will heal." "Not if it gets infected. Come to the kitchen. I have supplies." Thomas moved past her toward the door, then paused. "Unless you plan to rob us or worse, in which case I should probably put up more of a fight." The corner of Kara's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "If I wanted to rob you, I would have done it while you slept. If I wanted worse, you would already be dead." She said it matter-of-factly, without threat. "But I don't want either of those things. I just want to know your daughter is safe before I move on." Thomas nodded and led her out of the bedroom, pulling the door mostly closed behind them. The main room of the farmhouse was simple: a stone fireplace, a wooden table with 2 chairs, shelves holding Clara's few toys and his fewer books, and a kitchen area where Margaret's herbs still hung drying from hooks she'd installed. He lit a candle and gestured for Kara to sit while he gathered water, clean cloth, and the tin of salve the traveling healer had sold him last spring. Kara sat stiffly, her eyes constantly moving, cataloging exits and weapons. Thomas recognized that behavior. He'd been a soldier before becoming a farmer, before Margaret and Clara had given him a reason to want peace instead of war. "You're a hunter?" he asked, setting the supplies on the table. "A wanderer," Kara said. "I hunt demons and monsters that prey on settlements. I don't stay anywhere long." "Why not?" Kara's expression hardened. "You know why not. You've seen how humans look at my kind. I'm tolerated when I'm useful, then chased away when the threat passes. Sometimes chased away even then." She began unlacing her leather pants to expose the wound, and Thomas focused on preparing the cloth, giving her privacy. "My clan cast me out 5 years ago for refusing to raid human villages. They said I'd forgotten what it meant to be orc. Maybe I did. Maybe I became something else." Thomas wet the cloth and knelt beside her chair. The gash on her thigh was deep but clean, a claw mark. "This is going to hurt," he warned, then began cleaning the wound as gently as he could. Kara tensed but didn't make a sound. Her stoicism impressed him, though he supposed warriors learned early not to show pain. "I was a soldier once," he said, partly to distract her, partly because something about this strange night made him want to talk. "I fought orcs, killed some, got decorated for it." He paused, feeling the weight of those memories. "I'm not proud of it anymore. After I met Margaret, after Clara was born, I realized most of the orcs I killed were probably just trying to protect their own people, same as I was trying to protect mine." Kara watched him work on her leg, her expression unreadable. "That's an uncommon view for a human." Margaret had uncommon views about a lot of things. She always said the gods made too many different people for there to be only one right way to live. Thomas applied the salve, its sharp herbal scent filling the air between them. "She died 3 years ago. Fever took her in less than a week. Now it's just me and Clara trying to make this farm work and stay alive out here." "I'm sorry," Kara said softly, "for your loss." "And I'm sorry for the orcs I killed," Thomas replied, meeting her eyes. "If that means anything." Something in Kara's gaze shifted, a wall coming down slightly. "It means more than you know." She watched him bind the wound with practiced efficiency. "You were a field medic as well as a soldier. Just someone who saw too many friends die from infected wounds. You learned to be careful." Thomas tied off the bandage and stood, washing his hands in the basin. "You can stay until morning. There's a cot in the barn if you need rest." "I should keep watch," Kara said. "If there are more GH-RALs, then you'll be more useful with a few hours of sleep than none at all." Thomas crossed his arms. "Besides, I'm awake now. I'll keep watch until dawn. You've done your part." Kara studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Thank you." She rose, testing her weight on the injured leg, and Thomas saw the flash of pain she tried to hide. "Thomas Ashford, that's your name." "Just Thomas. We don't stand much on formality out here." "Then just Kara." She moved toward the door, then paused. "Your daughter, Clara. She looks peaceful when she sleeps. Happy. You must be a good father." The compliment caught Thomas off guard, warming something in his chest that had been cold for a long time. "I try. It's harder without Margaret, but I try." Kara nodded and slipped out into the night. Thomas watched through the window as she crossed the yard to the barn, her limp pronounced now that she thought no one was looking. He sat at the table, his knife within reach, and kept vigil until the sky began to pale with approaching dawn. When morning came, Thomas checked on Clara still sleeping soundly, then went outside to find Kara already awake and examining the area around the farmhouse. She'd found the demon's body, or what remained of it. Thomas had seen G.H. Rowls before, twisted things with too many limbs and eyes that glowed even in death. This one had been large, easily capable of tearing through the farmhouse wall if it had wanted to. "You killed this alone?" he asked, impressed despite himself. "It wasn't easy," Kara admitted. She prodded the corpse with her boot. "They're stronger than they look. This one was old, experienced. It had killed before many times. You can tell by the scarring on its hide each mark is from a victim who fought back." She looked at Thomas seriously. "If I hadn't been passing through, it would have gotten inside last night. Your daughter wouldn't have survived." The blunt truth of it hit Thomas hard. He'd been so focused on fixing fences and plowing fields and keeping the farm running that he'd let crucial things slip. The broken latch. The fact that they were isolated, vulnerable, that he was one man trying to do the work of two and Clara was paying the price for his shortcomings. "I need to fix that latch," he said quietly. "You need more than that," Kara said. "You need better wards around this property. Protection sigils. Iron charms above the doors and windows. The thornwood is thick with dark things, Thomas. A broken latch is just one vulnerability among many." Thomas felt defensive despite knowing she was right. "I'm doing the best I can alone." "I know," Kara said, her tone gentler. "I wasn't criticizing. Just observing." She turned away from the demon corpse. "I can help you set up basic protections before I leave. It won't take long and it might save your lives after I'm gone." "You don't have to do that." "I know I don't have to, I want to." Kara met his eyes. "Your daughter deserves to sleep safely. You both do." They spent the morning working together. Clara woke and came outside, stopping short when she saw Kara. Thomas tensed, ready to intervene, but Clara's reaction surprised him. Instead of fear, she showed curiosity, walking right up to the orc woman with the fearlessness only a 6-year-old could muster. "Are you a warrior?" Clara asked, staring at Kara's weapons. Kara knelt down, bringing herself closer to Clara's height. "I am. I hunt monsters to keep people safe." "Did you hunt the monster that made those scratches on your arms?" "A different monster." "But yes," Clara nodded sagely. "Papa says monsters aren't real, but I think he's wrong. I hear them sometimes at night in the woods." Thomas felt a chill. "Clara, why didn't you tell me?" "You're always so tired, Papa. I didn't want to worry you." Clara looked back at Kara. "What's your name?" "Kara Venris." "I'm Clara Ashford. Do you want to have breakfast with us? Papa makes good porridge, even though he always burns the bottom a little bit." Kara's expression softened into something approaching a smile. "I would like that very much." They ate together at the small table, Clara chattering about her cloth rabbit and the chickens she helped care for, and how she was learning to read from Papa's old books. Kara listened attentively, occasionally glancing at Thomas with an expression he couldn't quite read. After breakfast, while Clara played with her toys, Kara and Thomas worked on fortifying the farmhouse. She showed him how to carve protection runes into the doorframe using a mixture of ash and salt. She helped him hang iron horseshoes above each window, oriented properly to trap evil rather than merely symbolize luck. She walked the perimeter of the property, identifying weak points where things from the thornwood might cross into the farmyard. And together, they reinforced those boundaries with blessed stones Kara produced from her pack. "You carry a lot of supplies for a wanderer," Thomas observed as they worked. "I've learned to be prepared. Towns don't always welcome me long enough to resupply." Kara pressed a stone into the earth, speaking words in a language Thomas didn't recognize. "These wards will hold for several months if you maintain them. Refresh the runes every new moon. Replace any iron that rusts. Walk the boundary once a week and repair any broken stones." "How do you know all this?" Thomas asked. "Is it orc magic?" "Some of it." Some I learned from a witch who took pity on me during my first winter as a wanderer. She taught me the basics of protection magic in exchange for hunting the thing that was killing her goats." Kara stood, brushing dirt from her hands. She was human, old, and she didn't care that I was orc. She just cared that I was willing to help. I've never forgotten that kindness. Thomas thought about that as they continued working. By noon, they'd completed a circuit of the property, and Thomas felt more secure than he had since moving here. "Thank you," he said, "for all of this, for Clara. For everything." Kara shouldered her pack, preparing to leave. "Take care of her and yourself. Fix that latch today, not tomorrow." "I will." Thomas hesitated. "Where will you go now?" "East, toward the Grimwold. There are reports of a pack of night stalkers terrorizing travelers on the road to Millbrook. Someone needs to deal with them." Kara adjusted her weapons belt. "It was good to meet you, Thomas Ashford, both of you." Clara ran over and threw her arms around Kara's leg in an impromptu hug. "Don't go. Stay here with us." Kara looked stricken, uncertain how to respond. Her hands hovered over Clara's small form before gently patting her head. "I have to go, little one. There are monsters that need hunting." "But what if more monsters come here?" Clara asked, looking up with wide eyes. "Who will protect us?" "Your father will, and the wards we set today will help." Kara carefully extracted herself from Clara's embrace. "Be brave. Help your papa. Listen when he tells you to stay inside after dark." Thomas picked up Clara as Kara walked away, headed for the tree line. He held his daughter close, feeling the ache of watching someone leave, surprised by how much it hurt after knowing Kara for less than a day. Clara waved until Kara disappeared into the forest, then buried her face against Thomas's shoulder. "I liked her, Papa," Clara whispered. "I did too," Thomas admitted. The days that followed felt emptier somehow. Thomas fixed the latch on Clara's window, along with every other small repair he'd been putting off. He maintained the wards religiously, walking the boundary every few days, refreshing the ruins by moonlight. The farmhouse felt safer, but it also felt lonelier. He caught himself thinking about Kara at odd moments, the way she'd knelt to speak with Clara eye to eye, the sadness in her expression when she'd talked about her clan, the quiet competence with which she'd moved through the world. 3 weeks passed. The first frost came, turning the farmyard white and reminding Thomas that winter was approaching. He needed to finish preparing, cutting more firewood, preserving more food, checking the barn roof for leaks. But his mind kept wandering, and several times he found himself looking toward the thornwood as if expecting someone to emerge from the shadows. Then one evening, as Thomas was bringing the chickens in for the night and Clara was supposed to be washing up for dinner, he heard his daughter scream. The sound turned his blood to ice. He sprinted toward the house, his heart hammering, arriving to find Clara backing away from the kitchen window, where a pale, elongated hand was reaching through the broken glass, clawing for her. Thomas grabbed the iron poker from beside the fireplace and swung hard, striking the creature's arm. It shrieked and withdrew, but Thomas could hear more movement outside, scratching, hissing, the sound of something climbing the walls. Night stalkers. A whole pack of them, just as the sun was setting. "Clara, upstairs now," Thomas shouted, positioning himself between his daughter and the doors. The wards should have stopped them, but somehow the creatures were already on the property, already at the house. One of the windows shattered as a night stalker forced its way inside, its body impossibly thin and flexible, its eyes reflecting the lamplight like an animal's. Thomas swung the poker again, catching the creature across its skull. It stumbled back but didn't fall. More glass broke, more shadows poured in. Thomas fought desperately, knowing he was outnumbered, knowing he had to protect Clara even if it cost him everything. He heard his daughter crying upstairs and wanted to go to her, but he couldn't let these things past him. Then the door exploded inward, and Kara was there. She moved like violence made flesh, her blade flashing in the lamplight as she tore into the night stalkers with ruthless efficiency. Thomas had seen warriors fight before, had fought himself, but he'd never seen anything like Kara. She was everywhere at once, her movements precise and brutal, each strike designed to kill quickly and move to the next target. Within moments, 3 night stalkers lay dead on his floor and 2 more fled back through the broken windows. Kara pursued them into the yard, and Thomas heard the sounds of continued fighting. He ran upstairs to find Clara huddled under her bed, grabbed her and held her tight. "It's okay, baby. It's okay. Kara's here. We're safe." "Kara came back?" Clara asked between sobs. "She came back," Thomas confirmed, carrying his daughter downstairs just as Kara returned inside. She was breathing hard, blood on her blade and splattered across her leather armor, but her eyes were clear and focused. "Are you both unharmed?" Kara demanded. "We're fine. Because of you." Thomas set Clara down, and the little girl immediately ran to Kara, hugging her leg again despite the blood. Kara stiffened, then relaxed slightly, her hand coming to rest on Clara's head. "The wards were compromised," Kara said, her voice tight with anger. "Someone broke the boundary stones on the eastern edge, recently, within the last day or 2. That's how they got through." Thomas felt cold dread settle in his stomach. "Someone deliberately broke our protections." "There are humans who hate orcs so much they'll sabotage orc magic even when it's protecting other humans," Kara said bitterly. "Or it could have been random vandalism. Either way, the result is the same. You were vulnerable." She looked around at the destroyed windows, the dead creatures on the floor. "You can't stay here tonight. The night stalkers will return with reinforcements. They always do when they've identified prey." "Where can we go?" Thomas asked. The nearest village was a day's walk, too far with Clara. "Pack what you need for a few days. I know a place deeper in the Thornwood, a hunter's cabin that's been warded for decades. It's safe." Kara met his eyes. "Trust me." Thomas didn't hesitate. "I trust you." He gathered supplies quickly: food, blankets, Clara's rabbit, his knife. Within 20 minutes, they were moving through the dark forest, Kara leading the way with absolute confidence despite the moonless night. Clara rode on Thomas's back, and he followed Kara's green-skinned form through the undergrowth, trusting her completely. They walked for over an hour before reaching a small cabin built into the side of a hill, cleverly hidden by dense brush and old magic. Kara pushed open the door, revealing a single room with a fireplace, a bed and basic supplies. "This belonged to the witch who taught me," Kara explained. "She died 2 years ago and left it to me. I've kept it maintained in case I needed a refuge." Thomas set Clara down and began unpacking while Kara lit the fire. The cabin warmed quickly, and despite the terror of the evening, Clara soon fell asleep on the bed, exhausted by fear and relief. Thomas tucked her in carefully, then joined Kara by the fire. "You came back," he said quietly. "Why?" Kara stared into the flames. "I got halfway to the Grimwold and couldn't stop thinking about you, both of you, about Clara's hug, about the way you apologized for killing orcs you'd never met. About how you treated me like a person instead of a monster." She paused. "I told myself I was being foolish, that I had work to do, a purpose. But then I had a dream about night stalkers attacking a farmhouse, and I knew. I turned back 3 days ago. I've been watching your property from the woods, checking the wards, making sure you were safe." "You've been watching us for 3 days?" Thomas asked, surprised. "I didn't want to intrude. You have your life. I'm just a wanderer." Kara finally looked at him. "But tonight, when I saw the boundary had been broken, when I heard Clara scream, I knew I should have come back sooner. Should have warned you. Should have stayed in the first place." Thomas moved closer to her. Kara, why would you stay? You have your work, your purpose. Because I'm tired, Kara admitted, her voice cracking slightly. I'm tired of wandering, tired of being alone, tired of fighting and never having anywhere to return to. For 5 years, I've told myself this is what I chose, what I want. But then I met you and Clara, and for one night I felt like I belonged somewhere, like I mattered for more than just my ability to kill things. She looked away. I'm sorry, you don't need to hear this, you've been through enough tonight. Don't apologize, Thomas said. He reached out and took her hand, and Kara's eyes widened at the contact. You saved our lives. Twice. You've shown us more care and protection than we've received from anyone since Margaret died, and Clara adores you. I think she asked me about you every day after you left. And you? Kara asked softly. What do you think? Thomas chose his words carefully. I think I've been alone for 3 years. I think I've been so focused on surviving that I forgot what it feels like to want something beyond the next day. But when you left, I felt it. The wanting. I wanted you to stay. I wanted to know you better. I wanted Clara to have someone else in her life who'd protect her the way you do. He squeezed her hand. I wanted to not be alone anymore, and I think maybe you want that too. Kara's tusks showed as her mouth opened slightly in surprise. Thomas, you don't know what you're saying. I'm an orc. If people find out you're sheltering me, you'll be ostracized. Clara might be punished for it. The prejudice, I grew up with that prejudice, Thomas interrupted. I was taught it, believed it, fought wars because of it. But Margaret taught me to question what I'd been told. And you've shown me something those old stories never admitted, that orcs can be kind, protective. Good. He moved even closer. Stay with us. Not as a guest, not as a hired guard. Stay as family. Help me raise Clara. Help me run the farm. Let us give you a home. Tears gathered in Kara's eyes and she blinked them back fiercely. You're offering me everything I've wanted and told myself I could never have. Then say yes, Thomas urged. Say you'll stay. Kara looked at Clara sleeping peacefully on the bed, then back at Thomas. Yes, she whispered. I'll stay, for good. Thomas pulled her into an embrace, and after a moment of stiffness, Kara relaxed against him, her strong arms coming up to hold him back. They stayed like that for a long time, 2 lonely people finding comfort in shared warmth, while the fire crackled and the forest whispered outside the warded cabin. They remained at the cabin for 3 days while Kara hunted down and eliminated the remaining night stalkers in the area. Thomas stayed with Clara, keeping her safe and entertained with stories and games, but his thoughts constantly tracked Kara's absence, counting the hours until she returned. Each time she came back bloodied but alive, Thomas felt relief so intense it left him shaken. On the 4th day, they returned to the farmhouse. Together, they repaired the damage from the attack, replacing broken windows and restoring the wards even stronger than before. Kara moved her few possessions into the barn, insisting she didn't want to impose on the main house, but Clara protested so vigorously that Kara eventually agreed to take the small storage room off the kitchen. It barely fit a bed, but Kara seemed content with it. Life developed a new rhythm. Thomas handled the farm work, tending animals, maintaining equipment, planting crops for spring. Kara hunted, supplementing their food stores with game from the forest and continuing her work eliminating threats from the area around their home. Clara thrived with 2 adults caring for her, and Thomas watched in amazement as his daughter grew bold and confident under Kara's patient teaching. The orc woman taught Clara how to identify dangerous plants, how to move quietly through the forest, how to stand her ground when frightened. Winter came in earnest, and they settled into the close quarters of the farmhouse. Thomas found himself increasingly aware of Kara's presence, the way she moved, the sound of her voice, the rare smiles that transformed her serious face. They talked by the fire after Clara went to bed, sharing stories from their pasts, learning each other's wounds and hopes. Thomas told her about Margaret, about the love they'd shared and the grief that had nearly consumed him when she died. Kara told him about her clan, about the violence she'd been expected to embrace and her relief when they'd cast her out despite the loneliness that followed. "You ever regret it?" Thomas asked one night. "Leaving your people?" "No," Kara said without hesitation. "I regret that I had to choose between my conscience and my clan. I regret that there wasn't room in their worldview for someone like me, but I don't regret the choice itself. I'd rather be alone and true to myself than surrounded by people who want me to be something I'm not." She looked at him. "Though I'm not alone anymore, am I?" "No," Thomas agreed. "You're not." The first snow fell in late December, blanketing the farmyard in white silence. Clara delighted in it, and Kara surprised them both by engaging in a snowball fight that left all three of them laughing and soaked. Thomas watched Kara help Clara build a snow warrior, their green skin stark against the white backdrop, and felt something settle into place inside him. This was right. This strange, unlikely family they'd formed, it was right in ways he couldn't fully articulate but felt deeply. That night, after Clara was asleep and they were cleaning up from dinner, Thomas found himself standing very close to Kara as she washed dishes. She turned, nearly bumping into him, and they froze with mere inches between them. Thomas could see the flecks of darker green in her eyes, the small scar on her jaw, the way her tusks caught the lamplight. "Thomas," Kara said softly, "what are we doing?" "I don't know," he admitted, "but I want to find out." He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away, but Kara didn't move. Their lips met carefully at first, then with growing confidence as the kiss deepened. When they finally separated, both were breathing hard. "I've never," Kara started, then stopped. "That was my first kiss." Thomas blinked in surprise. "Really? Orcs don't typically kiss, and after I left my clan there was never anyone I trusted enough to want to try." She touched her lips wonderingly. "I liked it." "Good," Thomas said, unable to stop smiling, "because I'd like to do it again." They kissed again, and this time it was sweeter, more certain. Thomas felt like a young man again, discovering attraction and possibility for the first time. When they finally separated, Kara's cheeks had darkened to a deeper green, and Thomas knew he was blushing too. "We should talk about this," Kara said. "About what it means." "It means I care about you," Thomas said simply. "It means these months together have made me realize I don't just want you here as Clara's guardian or my friend. I want more, if you want that too." Kara took his hand, threading her rough fingers through his. "I want it. I want you. I want this life we're building. But Thomas, we have to be careful. If anyone from the village finds out, let them find out," Thomas said. "I don't care what they think. Margaret taught me to live by my own truth, not other people's prejudices. If they can't accept you, they can't accept me either." "What about Clara? She'll face consequences." "Clara loves you. She's loved you from the first moment. We'll protect her together, same as we protect each other." Thomas cupped Kara's face gently. "I won't hide you. I won't pretend you're just a hired hand or a friend staying temporarily. If we're doing this, we do it honestly." Tears spilled down Kara's cheeks. "I've never had anyone fight for me before. Choose me." "Get used to it," Thomas said, wiping her tears away with his thumbs. "Because I'm choosing you. Every day. For as long as you'll have me." They spent that winter growing closer, learning each other's rhythms and quirks. Thomas discovered that Kara sang old orc ballads while sharpening her weapons, that she had a weakness for honey cakes, that she startled awake from nightmares still reliving battles from her wandering years. Kara learned that Thomas talked to the chickens as if they understood him, that he still wore Margaret's ring on a chain around his neck, that he needed quiet time in the mornings before he could face the day. They were careful around Clara at first, not wanting to confuse her, but the little girl proved perceptive. One evening in February, she looked up from her toys and asked, "Is Kara going to be my new mama?" Thomas and Kara exchanged glances. "Would you want that?" Thomas asked carefully. Clara considered this seriously. "I miss Mama, I still love her, but she's not coming back. Papa, you're sad a lot, but you're not sad when Kara's here. And Kara teaches me things and keeps the monsters away. I think Mama would want us to be happy." She looked at Kara. "Are you happy here?" "Happier than I've ever been," Kara said honestly. "Then yes," Clara decided. "You should be my new Mama. Not instead of Mama, but as well as. Is that okay?" Kara knelt down and pulled Clara into a hug, her voice thick with emotion. "That's more than okay, little one. That's everything." Spring came slowly, the snow melting to reveal the farmyard again. Thomas and Kara began planning the year's crops together, and Thomas found himself imagining seasons stretching ahead, summers working the fields, autumns bringing in harvest, winters huddled together against the cold. A life. A real, full life with someone who understood him and chose to stay. In late March, Thomas made a decision. He spent a week working on something in the barn while Kara was out hunting, and when he finished, he asked her to walk with him to the edge of the property, where wildflowers were just beginning to bloom. Clara came too, bouncing with barely contained excitement because Thomas had told her his plan. They stood at the boundary, looking out over the thornwood. Thomas took a deep breath and turned to face Kara. "I know we haven't been together long. By some people's standards, this might seem too fast, but I've lived enough life to know that time doesn't matter as much as certainty. And I'm certain about you." He pulled a wooden box from his pocket and opened it, revealing a ring he'd carved himself from ash wood, inlaid with protective runes and polished until it gleamed. "Kara Venris, will you marry me? Will you be my wife, Clara's mother, my partner in this life we're building?" Kara stared at the ring, her eyes wide. "Thomas, are you sure? Marriage between humans and orcs, I don't even know if it's legal, and people will—" "I don't care about legal," Thomas interrupted. "We'll have our own ceremony, make our own vows. The gods know what's in our hearts, that's what matters." He took her hand. "I love you, I want to build a future with you, say yes." Kara looked at Clara, who nodded encouragingly. She looked at the farmhouse in the distance, at the land they'd protected together, at the life they'd carved out against the odds. Then she looked back at Thomas, and her expression transformed into pure joy. "Yes, yes, I'll marry you." Thomas slipped the ring onto her finger, and they kissed while Clara cheered. When they pulled apart, Kara was laughing and crying simultaneously, and Thomas felt lighter than he had in years. They held the ceremony a week later at sunset, with only Clara as their witness. They stood in the farmyard and spoke vows. They'd written together promises to protect, to support, to love through whatever challenges came. There was no priest, no legal document, but as they bound their hands together with a ribbon and spoke their commitment to the spring sky, Thomas felt the weight of sacred truth. This was real. This mattered. This was forever. That night, after Clara was asleep, Thomas and Kara lay together in the bed that was now theirs, talking quietly about the future. "We'll need to expand the house," Thomas said. "Make Clara's room bigger. Maybe add another room or two, planning for more children." Kara asked, amusement in her voice. "Would you want that?" "I don't know if humans and orcs can even—" "We can," Kara said. "It's rare but possible. Half-orc children. They face their own challenges, caught between two worlds." She was quiet for a moment. "I'd like to try. I'd like to give Clara siblings, give you more children, build something that lasts beyond us." Thomas kissed her temple. "Then we'll try, and whatever comes, we'll face it together." The months that followed were the happiest of Thomas's life. He and Kara worked side by side, expanding the farm's productivity and fortifying its defenses. Clara thrived, growing taller and more confident. Word eventually spread to the village about the orc woman living at the Ashford farm, and there was talk, some of it harsh, some simply curious. But when a group of travelers was attacked by bandits on the road and Kara intervened, saving their lives, opinions began to shift. When she helped track down a missing child lost in the thornwood, returning the boy safe to his grateful parents, more people reconsidered their prejudices. Thomas never hid their relationship. When he went to the village for supplies, he spoke openly about his wife, daring anyone to challenge him. Some did, but Thomas stood firm, and gradually even the harshest critics fell silent. It helped that their farm prospered, that Clara was healthy and happy, that Kara had saved more than a dozen lives in the area. Hard to maintain hatred in the face of such evidence. By the time autumn arrived again, marking a full year since Kara had first come into their lives, they'd built something remarkable. The farm was thriving. Clara could read entire books now and had started helping with more complex chores. Kara had been accepted by most of the local community, or at least tolerated. And Thomas and Kara had grown into a partnership so natural it felt like they'd been together for decades rather than months. One evening in October, as they sat around the table finishing dinner, Clara announced she had something to say. "I've been thinking," she said seriously. "I know Kara's my new mama now, but she still has her orc name. If she's part of our family, shouldn't she be an Ashford too?" Kara looked surprised. "Clara, I don't need to change my name to be your mother." "But I want you to," Clara insisted. "I want everyone to know we're family. Please." Kara looked at Thomas, who nodded. "She has a point. You're my wife, Clara's mother. You're an Ashford now if you want to be." Kara's eyes glistened with tears she didn't try to hide. "Kara Ashford," she said, testing the sound. Yes, I want that." Clara jumped up and hugged her mother. "We're a real family now. We were always a real family," Thomas said, standing to embrace both of them. "But now everyone will know it." As they stood together in the warm farmhouse, surrounded by the life they'd built and the love they'd chosen, Thomas thought about how far they'd all come. A lonely widower, an outcast wanderer, and a little girl who'd needed more than one person could give. Separately, they'd been surviving. Together, they were thriving. Winter came again, but this time Thomas didn't dread it. He had Kara beside him at night, her warmth and presence a constant comfort. He had Clara's laughter filling the house. He had purpose beyond mere survival. He had family, love, and hope for the future. On the darkest night of winter, when the solstice arrived and they gathered around the fire, Thomas raised a cup in toast. "To second chances," he said, "to finding family in unexpected places. To the woman who came into our lives as a guardian and stayed as so much more." "To Thomas," Kara responded, raising her own cup, "who saw me as a person when the world saw a monster, who gave me a home when I'd resigned myself to wandering forever." "To both of you," Clara added, holding up her cup of warm milk. "My papa and my mama, I love you." They drank together, and outside the protected farmhouse, the thornwood lay dark and dangerous. But inside, there was light and warmth and love. There was a family that had been broken and remade into something stronger than before. There was a future stretching ahead, uncertain but full of possibility. Thomas looked at his wife, her green skin luminous in the firelight, and remembered the night he'd woken to find her standing watch over Clara. He'd known then, on some instinctive level, that she was important, that she'd stay, that everything was about to change. He'd been right, but he'd never imagined how profoundly, how beautifully his life would transform. Kara had brought more than protection to their home. She'd brought herself her strength, her kindness, her capacity for love. And in return, they'd given her what she'd been seeking without knowing it: a place to belong, people who valued her for who she was, and the chance to be more than a weapon pointed at the darkness. As the fire burned low and Clara dozed between them, Thomas took Kara's hand and squeezed gently. She squeezed back, and no words were needed. They'd found each other against impossible odds. They'd built something real and lasting from loneliness and chance, and they'd keep building it day by day, season by season, for the rest of their lives. Together, always together.